Imagine a bank heist where no one wears a mask, no one cuts the alarm, and the vault door never moves an inch. One quiet night in Dhaka, Bangladesh Bank is half asleep. A security guard sips tea in front of silent cameras. The counters are empty. The steel vault sits untouched. And while everyone thinks their money is safe behind concrete and metal, something else is happening an ocean away. On a server in New York, a stream of stubby FT messages begins to flow. The codes are correct. The sender is real. The amounts are huge. Nearly $1 billion is ordered to move. Most of it is stopped. 81 million is not. It slips through screens and time zones into accounts in Manila, then melts inside the noise of casino floors and neon lights. No guns. No getaway car. Just malware, bad security, and a machine that forgot to print. This is the night hackers robbed a central bank without ever stepping inside. Welcome to Leak Protocol. It starts with a night so quiet, you could hear a chair creak 3 floors away. Inside Bangladesh Bank, the trading screens are dark. The counters are empty. Ceiling fans push warm air over rows of silent desks and plastic chairs. In the control room, a lone security guard leans back, stifling a yawn, eyes drifting across a wall of cameras that only show stillness. Corridors with the lights half off. Closed office doors. A heavy vault sitting there like a sleeping animal. Steel bolts locked. Paint chipped at the edges. If this were an old heist movie, this is where you would expect the masks. The hoodies. A van idling in an alley. Glass shattering. Someone shouting for everyone to get down while sirens howl in the distance. But tonight there is none of that. No one slips through a side door. No one points a gun. No alarm shrieks through the marble lobby. The guard pours himself tea and glances at his phone. The vault does not even shiver. The real action is happening in places no camera in this building can see. On a server in New York, a SWIFT console blinks awake as a stream of payment messages arrives from Bangladesh. Legitimate sender. Correct codes. Transfer instructions that look exactly like late night banking business. Lines of text hop from Dhaka to New York, then into accounts in Manila, then toward casinos where neon lights reflect on polished floors and chips slide across green felt. In Dhaka, the bank sleeps through its own robbery. $81 million is already on the move. And not a single thief has had to touch the door. 48 hours before the quiet night, and the missing millions, the story looks almost boring.
Legitimate sender.
In the center of Dhaka, the central bank sits in a building that has seen too many monsoons. The paint on the walls is faded. Ceiling fans spin slowly, pushing warm air over worn desks. Old desktop computers hum on metal tables, their screens crowded with icons. Cables snake along the floor and up the walls, held in place with tape and hope. Outside, buses and rickshaws fight for inches of road, horns blaring. Inside, the numbers on the screens belong to another universe. On one of those floors, a small IT team eats cheap lunches at their desks and fights with aging hardware. They go home on crowded buses, pay school fees, send money to parents, worry about rent. Yet every morning they sit down in front of systems that connect directly to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, where the country keeps its foreign reserves. They log into SWIFT terminals that can, with a few lines of text, move more money in one click than they will see in a lifetime. For the operators who send and receive those messages, the system feels almost holy. They wear sandals on cracked tile, shirts a little shiny from too many washes, staring at balances with 10, 11 digits. It is a strange kind of tension. A poor building, holding the keys to very rich accounts. A mountain of money perched on old bricks and tired wiring, waiting for someone, somewhere, to find the one loose stone. Somewhere between Dhaka and New York, There is a network most people never see. It does not look like a river of coins or a vault full of gold. It looks like messages. Short, dense strings of text that banks send to one another, carrying instructions that can move fortunes. This is SWIFT. It is not a pipe that money flows through. It is more like a legal email between institutions. One bank writes to another and says, in a language only they use, send this much from this account over here to that account over there. If the message is formatted correctly and comes from a trusted code, the other side acts. No one has to speak. No one has to meet. The message is enough.
Borrow the voice.
Picture a map of the world in the dark.
Own the access.
Every major city holds tiny points of light, each one a bank. When a SWIFT message is sent, a narrow beam connects two of those points, then another, until the whole planet flickers with thin lines of trust. The system was built on a simple assumption.
Sometimes,
if you are inside the network, you are supposed to be safe. The walls around it are high, the gates heavy. But at the edges, in small rooms with old machines, the lock on one little side door is rusting. And if someone can slip through that door, they do not have to break the fortress. They can simply borrow its voice, and let the messages do the rest. The only thing more powerful than a perfect password is a perfect imitation of trust, whispered from the weakest terminal on the line. If you walk past it in the hallway, the SWIFT room does not look like the nerve center of a nation. It looks like any other cramped server room. The air is too cold, because the old air conditioner only has two moods, off and freezing. A couple of beige computers sit on metal desks, their cases scratched, fans whining softly under the hum of fluorescent lights. On one of those machines, the same keyboard has handled everything for years. In the morning, a clerk checks personal email on a web browser wedged between windows of banking software. In the afternoon, someone plugs in a USB drive to print a form. At night, that same box is the terminal that speaks to New York, telling the outside world how much money should move and where it should land. No one here thinks of themselves as holding the gates to a fortress. They think about deadlines and sick children and the next power outage. The antivirus program is old. The firewall rules were never quite finished. Somewhere in that mix, one wrong click on a convincing email, or a borrowed USB used on the wrong day, is all it takes for a small piece of malicious code to slide quietly onto the very machine that talks to SWIFT. From the outside, people imagine steel and lasers and guards with earpieces. From the inside, it is paint peeling, cables taped to the floor, and a login screen. Once the malware is sitting on that terminal, the thieves do not have to break in at all. As far as the system is concerned, they already are the person sitting in the room. Friday nights in Dhaka move to their own rhythm. Out on the street, car horns slowly thin out, and the food stalls by the roadside get ready to sell the last of their samosas. Inside the central bank building, employees shut down their screens one by one, stack their papers, and say quick goodbyes as they leave a little earlier than usual, because the weekend is coming. The last footsteps echo down the hallway and vanish behind the elevator doors. In the SWIFT room, someone reaches over and flicks off the light switch. The white ceiling glow disappears, leaving only a thin strip of LEDs on the computer cases still shining green. The monitors go to sleep, but the system stays awake. The printer in the corner is completely still, its paper tray full of clean sheets, waiting for morning. The cold little room now feels more like a storage closet than a place that can shake a nation's reserves. As the clock in Dhaka slips past midnight, code that no one can see begins to work. From the same machine that usually prints transaction reports, payment orders are quietly drafted and sent, sliding along the wires to servers in New York. Each instruction is only a handful of dry lines, but every one of them pushes a slice of the reserve funds out of the bank's control. At the same time, the malware reaches a little further. It touches the simplest thing in the room. The printouts that should be waiting on the tray in the morning are held back or replaced with neat, clean, fake reports that show nothing unusual. The printer stands there in silence, as if there is nothing worth mentioning. That night, no one has to cover a camera lens. No one needs to pull a cap low over their eyes. All it takes is making one printer go quiet, and the rest of the robbery glides forward on the hum of cooling fans and the soft blink of green lights.
The money is
On the other side of the world, Dhaka is wrapped in darkness and ceiling fans.
In New York,
In New York,
is wide
it is still fluorescent light and coffee
We're seeing
breath.
heavy sell-offs in Asia.
Deep
Maintain
inside the
current
Federal
levels.
Reserve,
Wait for the London
in a
Open.
windowless room that could just as well be a spaceship, operators sit in front of wide monitors, watching numbers flow past like traffic on a highway only they can see. On one of those screens, a new batch of messages from Bangladesh Bank begins to stack up. To the system, they are spotless. The sender code belongs to a real central bank. The digital keys line up. The format is textbook. Each line is just a polite instruction between trusted institutions. Move this much from here to there. No exclamation marks. No red flags in the wording. What makes the room tighten is the size. One instruction. Then another. Then another. Tens of millions of dollars in each line, all aimed at accounts in the Philippines and Sri Lanka. In the span of a coffee break, the total curls up toward nearly $1 billion. One operator notices, leans in, eyes scanning a little slower. The amounts feel heavy. The timing feels strange. But every check the system runs comes back clean. Authentication passes. Codes are unbroken. On the surface, this is SMUFT doing exactly what SWFT was built to do. A few transfers hit automated tripwires and stall. Certain pairs of words and numbers wake up the filters, and some orders are paused for review. The rest glides straight through the queue, picked up and processed by machines that have no sense of unease. To the software that guards the vaults of the world, these are just correctly shaped messages from a familiar source. It does not see a sleepy bank in Dhaka. It only sees green. Somewhere in the middle of that storm of payment orders, one line stumbles over a single word. It is a transfer headed toward a charity in Sri Lanka, something called Shalika Foundation. On the SWFT message, the name comes through just a little bit wrong. One letter out of place. Not enough to jump out at a machine. Just enough to bother a human being who has been staring at screens all day. At an intermediary bank, a tired employee leans in closer to the monitor. The amount is enormous. The origin is a central bank. The codes look fine. But the name of the beneficiary feels off in their mouth when they read it under their breath. They check a list of known charities. They look again at the spelling.
Thorn,
Something does not sit right.
what is he
In a
doing here?
world of automated flows, this is the moment when
Wait, this
old-fashioned
name right
doubt
here.
does something software
It
cannot.
can't be.
The employee does not shrug and click approve. They pick up the phone. Questions start moving upstream. Can you confirm this name? Can you confirm this purpose? While the hackers' scripts wait for everything to slide through. This one odd line has turned into a handbrake. Because of that small, almost accidental act of suspicion, most of the nearly $1 billion never leaves the safety of the system. The orders tied to that charity are halted, examined, stopped cold. But the story does not reset. By the time the questions reach Dhaka, $81 million has already slipped past on other routes. Those funds are now out in the world, looking for casinos and back rooms to wash away the last traces of where they came from. By the time most of the fraudulent transfers are frozen, one stream of money has already broken away from the pack. About $81 million leaves the safe gravity of New York, passes through an intermediary bank, and lands quietly in a cluster of freshly opened accounts in the Philippines. On a ledger, it is just another foreign remittance, numbers marching across screens. From there, the money does what people do when they want to disappear in plain sight. It changes costume. Dollars become pesos. Balances that once lived in the careful world of central banks are sliced and shuffled into accounts controlled by shell companies and front men. The dates line up. The paperwork looks routine. Nothing about the pixels themselves gives away that this is stolen sovereign cash. Then the setting changes. The trail moves from gray back offices into the neon pulse of Manila casinos. Glass doors slide open to let in men with slim briefcases and guarded eyes. Chip trays clatter. Roulette wheels spin. The camera could track a single stack of bills as it is carried into a VIP room, counted under soft yellow light, and handed over to be turned into colored chips. On paper, it is gambling money now.
We've been expecting you.
At that time, casinos here were not tightly bound by anti-money laundering rules. They were legal businesses, but for this kind of operation, they might as well have been washing machines set to a quiet cycle. At the tables, dealers flip cards and push chips with practiced hands. Floor staff refill drinks. A high roller laughs too loudly at a lucky streak. No one in that room knows, or wants to know, that some of the plastic discs sliding back and forth across the felt once represented hospital budgets, teacher salaries, the foreign reserves of a country they have never seen. For them, it is just another night under bright lights. For the money, it is the moment it stops looking like a robbery and starts looking like luck.
Moving through the hands of the oblivious.
Morning in
signifying
Dakar
nothing but the
arrives
romantic
like it
walls.
always does, pretending nothing has changed. The traffic outside leans on its horn. Vendors set up their tea stalls, sugar and steam rising into the heat. Inside Bangladesh Bank, the halls fill with the low murmur of another workday starting. In the WFT room, a clerk pushes open the door with one shoulder, phone pressed to their ear, talking about bus fares and school uniforms.
Stop it, really? They're complaining
They
about
drop
the bus
their
fares
bag,
again.
wake the computer,
And the uniforms.
and reach out, without looking toward the printer tray, expecting the familiar stack of overnight reports. Their hand closes on air. The tray is empty. The machine is dark and silent. The conversation on the phone falters. The clerk hangs up, frowns, and bends closer. Every other morning, the printer hums before they even arrive, spitting out pages that tell the story of the night. Today, there is only that dull plastic stare. A few taps on the keypad. Nothing. A restart. The room goes very quiet, as if even the air is waiting. Then, the machine shudders awake. With a grind and a whine, it begins to print. One page, then another. Then a flood. Sheets pour out, still warm. Each line a transaction that no one has seen before this moment. By the time the clerk gathers the stack, their fingers are shaking. Upstairs, senior managers take the pile, expecting to sign off on routine traffic. They scan the first page, and the color drains from their faces. Transfers so large they look like misprints. Destinations in countries no one remembers approving. Lines that say Bangladesh Bank as the ordering customer, but the money is heading straight into private accounts abroad. At first, someone laughs too loudly and calls it a glitch. Maybe a duplication. Maybe a test batch gone wrong. Phones start ringing. Screens light up. The more they check, the less room there is for innocent explanations. Every line is real. Every confirmation is stamped. Standing there with those papers in their hands, they feel a cold understanding settle in. The vault downstairs never opened. No door was forced. The robbery happened in the hours when they trusted the silence. It is written out now, in neat black ink, page after page, like a confession the bank never meant to sign. News does what news always does with pain. It does not have to carry. It turns it into a headline. Within days, the story has left the hot streets of Dhaka and landed on glowing screens around the world. Central bank hacked through SBLFT. $81 million vanish. Anchors in cool studios say the words with practiced concern.
We take this incident
Graphics
very
show arrows
seriously.
leaving Bangladesh and streaking toward the Philippines. For most viewers, it is another exotic disaster in a place they will never visit. Behind those headlines, the argument starts almost immediately. On one side, officials and commentators point at the bank.
This points directly to your
Out-of-date
oversight.
computers,
I suggest
weak
you
internal
review the signing
controls,
authorities before casting
no proper
blame.
firewall around the SWIFT terminal.
Numbers don't lie. It
How could
traces
they let
back
a
to
central
your
bank run on
oversight.
infrastructure like that? On the other side, people ask harder questions about the network itself. If the whole system rests on the idea that any connected bank is automatically trusted, is it enough to say the core is safe, while the edges crumble? Representatives stand at podiums under harsh lights. They apologize without quite admitting fault. They say the right phrases. We take this incident very seriously. We are cooperating with authorities. We are reviewing our security posture. The language is calm, clean, rehearsed. None of it shows the faces of the clerks who pressed print, or the managers who watched their signatures hanging beneath transfers they never meant to send. Somewhere beneath the press releases sits an uncomfortable question. If you build a machine where one weak link can let tens of millions slip away, is the blame only on the link that snapped? Or does some of it belong to the design that asked fragile parts to hold that much weight in the first place? When the world imagines this heist, it pictures shadowy hackers and glowing code. It almost never pictures the guy in a wrinkled shirt, standing in a cramped office at 9 at night, staring at an error log with his name on it. Inside Bangladesh Bank, after the shock, there is a quieter kind of investigation. Someone prints out network diagrams. Someone underlines a sentence that says, there was no proper firewall in place. Another paragraph notes that the SWIFT terminal shared a network with ordinary office machines. In red pen, next to those lines, there is an unspoken translation. Who let this happen? Now zoom in on the people that paper is pointing at. The IT lead, who has been begging for hardware upgrades for 3 years and getting, at best, a new fan. The young admin who learned most of his skills from online forums because the training budget dried up. The night shift technician who has juggled power cuts, dying switches, and virus scare after virus scare with nothing but free tools and hope. On the audit slide, they are bullet points. In real life, they are the ones who slept on the office couch during outages, who patched aging systems with cheap fixes, because that was all anyone would approve.
These diagrams highlight the critical
They were told to keep the lights on.
The escalation
No one
we saw at
mentioned.
the perimeter must be
They were
addressed
also
before the
the
next
last
phase
thin
begins.
wall
As you can
between
see
a
on the main
national
screen, the
reserve
attack vector
and a
utilized
global
the
crime
exposed
syndicate.
ports. We
In
must
every
patch these
high-tech
vulnerabilities
heist movie,
immediately to
the
prevent
hero
further
is the
data loss.
hacker. But here is the twist. In the real version, the person walking into the interrogation room is not a mastermind. It is the under-equipped admin who was asked to hold $1 billion line with second-hand shields. And the question hanging in the air is not just how did you fail? It is who decided that was ever going to be enough. When someone finally yells stop, the money is already gone. What comes next is the part the public rarely watches.
Ammo thickens around the
In the
same
months
old
after the
arteries.
Bangladesh job, the global banking world goes into quiet panic mode. In
Ammo
glass
thickens
towers
around
from
the
New
same
York to
old
London to
arteries.
Singapore, executives sit through emergency briefings with too much coffee and not enough sleep.
Evidence connectors.
On big screens,
This slide
the word
highlights the key
SWIFT
findings from
appears
our
beside new
Bangladesh
phrases.
initiative.
Customer security program.
Moving on to the
Mandatory
next
audit.
section, lessons from
Stronger
Bangladesh.
controls. The tone
Please
is
note
careful.
The updated
The
security
subtext is
protocols
not.
based on this data.
We got hit.
Check off item
We cannot
3B
let
on the
this happen
compliance
again.
list.
Picture a world map
the
in a dark
database
room,
migration look?
dotted with tiny
Still showing
lights.
errors on server
Each one a
3.
bank wired into the same nervous
Did we
system.
finalize the security
After the
audit?
heist,
Almost.
some of those
Just
lights
waiting on
flicker
legal
and
approval
change
for
color
Section 3.
as new defenses snap into place. Multi-factor logins at CSWFT terminals. Extra approvals for large transfers. Systems that watch for unusual bursts of traffic and raise a hand when something feels off. On the diagram, it looks like armor thickening around the globe. Down on the ground, it feels messier. Staff file into training rooms to sit through fresh security modules. IT teams work late, racing to install updates and tick boxes on new compliance checklists. A payment that once took 5 minutes now needs 2 signatures and a phone call. People grumble about delays, roll their eyes at yet another password rule, then go back to their desks, a little more aware of the weight behind every click. There is progress in all of this. The door is heavier now. The hallway is better lit. But it is also impossible to ignore the timing. These upgrades did not arrive because someone imagined the worst and prepared.
2,500.
They arrived because the worst had already walked in, taken what it wanted, and left through a path no one was watching. New locks after the thief has crossed the street with his pockets full are still better than nothing. They are also a reminder that in the world of money and code, security so often chases the story instead of writing it first. In all the giant numbers we have just walked through, there is one much smaller number that cuts straight to you. The balance in your own account, your paycheck, your savings, the transfer for tuition or rent, all of it rides on rails you did not build, run by people you will never meet, in systems you are mostly asked to trust. Picture a very ordinary night. 2 in the morning. Your room is dark. Your phone lights up on the nightstand. A message from your bank. A transfer you do not remember making.
But you can
The
watch
first
what
feeling
goes
is
on
confusion,
behind them.
then a cold drop in your stomach. You have 2 choices.
You cannot build the walls.
Turn the screen
but
face
you can
down
watch what goes on
and tell
behind
yourself
them.
it is probably a mistake. Or sit up, clear your throat, and call the bank right then, voice rough with sleep. In stories like the Bangladesh heist, the thing that saves anything at all is not always a firewall. Sometimes it is the person who decides not to wait until morning. Another scene.
Final authorization on the transfer
Daytime,
immediately.
you
The
sit at your
verification
laptop
protocols are cycling
and open
now.
your banking
Understood.
app.
I'll flag it for review, but
You
compliance is
lower your
strict on
own
this.
transfer limits a
The
bit.
verification process is
You
active
turn on
our
every
side.
alert they
Are
offer,
you seeing the same
email,
status?
text,
Yes.
push
the review is
notifications.
complete. Access is
When a
granted.
strange email shows up asking you to change the account where your salary is paid, you do not click the link just to get it over with. You call HR. You call your branch. You ask someone to confirm. That is not living in fear. That is accepting that the pipes can leak and
cannot
choosing
stop
to bolt
every
on a
attack.
few sensors of your own. And maybe the hardest shift of all is letting go of the
cannot
idea
stop
that a
every
bigger
attack.
logo means unbreakable. The sign on the skyscraper does not scare off malware.
No one
In your
had to
mind,
touch it.
let those symbols flip over into lines of code, into dots on a world map, like every other bank. No
one
worship,
had to touch it.
just realism. You cannot stop every attack. You cannot control who is typing on a keyboard half a world away. But you can shrink the time between impact and awareness from days to hours, sometimes from hours to minutes. For a single person, that gap is often the line between a story you tell later with a sigh of relief and a crack in your sense of safety that never fully closes. In the basement of Bangladesh Bank, the vault door is still there. Heavy. Thick. Absolute. Layers of steel and concrete, hinges the size of your arm. On the night of the heist, nothing new marked its surface. No drill holes. No scorch marks. No bent metal. The vault did its job perfectly. It is just that, on that night, nobody needed it. Pull the camera back and the last century. Looks like an old crime film. Robbing a bank meant masks and gunpowder. Getaway cars idling at the curb. Tellers on the floor. Someone screaming for everyone to stay down. It was loud. It was messy. Everyone in the room knew they were in the middle of a robbery. Now the scene is different. No shouting. No broken glass. Just email, malware, and a printer that has been quietly told to stay asleep. A click in Dhaka. A script running on a forgotten machine. A handful of SWIFT messages that look like any other business day. The money leaves without a single shoe crossing the lobby. That leaves a question hanging in the air for you. Not just for them. If a crew sitting thousands of miles away can pull cash out of a central bank without ever touching the building, where exactly is your own line of safety drawn? On the logo on your debit card? On the promises on a website? Or on the way you pay attention to the small alerts and strange messages that most people swipe past? If this story made you look at your bank statement a little differently, do not let that feeling fade when the video ends. Hit like so this episode gets pushed in front of a few more people who still think big banks are too big to be robbed. Share it with the one friend who jokes that cyber heists only happen in movies. And if you want to keep following the hidden pipes that carry money and power around the world, subscribe to Leak Protocol. This is just the beginning. In the next chapter, we leave the vaults behind and follow a single email attachment into a citywide blackout. That time,
Sometimes
what
it
disappears
only
is not
takes
just
one
money,
click.
but light.